This is Kevin Benedict, Senior Analyst for Digital Transformation and Mobility with the Center for the Future Work at Cognizant. And I want to thank you for joining us today and my guest, Sanjay Poonen.
Great to be here, Kevin. Thanks for having me on your
Thanks
show.
for having us, Sanjay. Beautiful VMware campus.
500 acres of beautiful campus in Palo Alto. Anyone is welcome.
That's awesome. Now, your title is Executive Vice President and General Manager of End User Computing.
Yes.
When you got that title, did you have to get bigger business cards?
I'm sure you're going to ask me what the hell is end user computing.
Talk to me about it. What's that mean?
Yeah, it's actually just like the word says. I mean, obviously I've been in the world of end users practically all my life. Most of my life has been in the world of analytics. I'm an analytics and big data guy for most of my 20 plus years of IT experience. But the last few years has been involved with the, I would describe the workspace or workplace transformation to digital workplaces. And end user computing is just like the word sounds. It's the computing needs of end users. Okay? So what are the computing needs of end users? They have a desktop and laptop infrastructure that they use, that they need to be secured and managed, in some cases virtualized. They are increasingly thinking about mobile as they think about their digital experience. And that needs to be managed, secured. You're sharing data, content, how do you share that effectively? And you need something that basically ties it all together in a kind of an identity-based solution. And there's probably many other types of things that you need in that, but those are the 4 areas that we've worked on. And we focus on our mission being the digital workspace. So we coined the term the workspace. Actually, I thought it was 2010 or 2011 when Paul Maritz came up with that term, but somebody corrected me on Twitter. It was actually 2007 when VMware acquired this company named Propero that we coined that term workspace. Now a lot of people use the term workspace, even some competitors of ours. So it's becoming a little bit like the term office was for the productivity apps. The workspace is the space you work. And it becomes the places where many of these applications can be delivered to any device, whether you have a desktop, a laptop, a tablet, a phone, or a Tesla. And that's really what we've made our mission.
Absolutely. Identity management, you just said that. Identity management to me seems like one of the key ingredients for mobility going forward.
It is, I think, the most important linchpin of security and why we've made it a very key part in our launch of the VMware Identity Manager earlier this year.
I just did a study and it's coming out in 7 days.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called Cutting Through Chaos in the Age of Mobile Me.
Okay.
And in that report, it's calling out the fact that almost all e-commerce transactions are going through multiple devices. Somebody does a quick discovery on an iPhone or a smartphone of some sort. They go home in the evening, do immersive research on a tablet of some sort, and then they do the transaction on the laptop. So it's like tracking somebody's experience across all of that is where identity management really plays a part there too.
Yeah, we think we often use this metaphor. I like that, Kevin, and we build on that by saying today when you think about the way in which our users use identity, unfortunately for the normal end user, they have so many usernames and passwords. They, if they don't really trust anything, they write them on a piece of paper. And they realize, okay, that can't be really secure.
Right.
Okay, then write them on a file, but it's lighting their computer, non-encrypted, not lost. And ultimately, we think, each of those kind of like a janitor's key ring of 50 different keys, right? You've got all these keys, you're trying to open various different doors to the castle. Imagine if you just had one key. And in the mobile world, with your phone or iPad or whatever have you, you've got fingerprinting, you potentially have retina scanning that you can use the camera for. That becomes your second factor of authentication. There are the other forms, biometrics we're very hot on. And they're just easier ways to solve identity in a user-centric fashion for the mobile world, as opposed to an IT-centric fashion that was done for the last 5, 10, 15 years. Absolutely. So you have to look at now identity in a very fresh sense. We think it's adjacent to a lot of the things that we're thinking about in cloud security, what we're doing in network security. It is probably the most important part of security for us in our mobile dialogue, and we're excited to have it. It's a great story. You're going to see us partnering more with folks in our federation like RSA as we do it, and we think it's going to be a very, very important part of the future of my end user computing strategy.
Awesome. So let me take our line of questioning to a different topic.
Okay, good.
So you and I have both been in mobility for many years.
Not as many years as you.
Okay.
So I'm the neophyte compared to you.
Got it. But we've seen a lot of acronyms, even in your time, right?
Yeah.
So the mobile MEEPS, right? So Mobile Enterprise Application
that
Management.
acronym I know.
MADP, mobile
Yes.
application development platforms, and then there's MBAS for mobile
Sure.
backend as a service.
Sure.
All these things coming out. What's going to be the next big acronym?
Yeah. I think we were very deliberate as we acquired AirWatch, you know, as a key part to our digital workplace transformation. I hate acronyms. I mean, I came from a company, and I'm in a company, and tech is just filled with them.
Yeah.
You'll probably find a lot of 3-4 letter acronyms that have V in front of it inside VMware.
Yes.
And you'll find a lot of them at SAP in my world, where it started with ERP, but everything was a 3-letter acronym. So, you know, we used to use that TLA, 3-letter acronym. So as we think about kind of the mobile management and security option, that's how you can call it EMM, whatever, but really what you're doing when you deploy a leading solution like AirWatch is you're managing and securing a device and application data, or, you know, some kind of your identity. So that is an important space, and we think that that space is hot. We've been very, very fortunate and blessed to be the leader in that space now since we acquired AirWatch, and that business is just on fire. So we're excited about it, and it fits into a key aspect of how you digitize the workplace and transform it. But there are other places inside mobile that we track that are very companion areas. I think all of the acronyms you use are involved with the development and deployment of applications. And in that area, everyone has been in this quest for how do you do that faster than potentially having to do native again and again and again.
Right.
Build a native app.
Right.
And I think the world is vacillating. I think if you look at some of the new things, even the apps that IBM is building for Apple or some of them, they're all kind of swinging native. Probably after the decision, Facebook decided to go off HTML5 and go native. So many of them are Swift-based, it's iOS-specific, Android, and that's okay. But as you build that, I think the entire quest for a mobile app development platform was to potentially write once, run anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's continued to be, you have many of these players who are trying to do it. They're hopefully getting better. I think that that movement is going to be influenced or might be even directed by open source. That's my philosophy 2 or 3 years later.
Okay.
We partner very well with many of those folks. Cloud Foundry is a good example of that within the Federation. And we think open source is really going to make a very big difference to developers developing apps. Now, what happens as you build those apps with some of those open source types of frameworks, you would still like to have some kind of back-end services that connect you to corporate systems, databases. And that's why I think the mobile back-end as a service is a legitimate set of tooling that can sit in the cloud, work with some SDK to help you develop the apps. Hopefully that's open source, but provide you a set of services that you can reasonably pay for, and I think customers will pay for that. And I think the vendors who morphed themselves from mobile app development to a mobile app backend as a service can probably make a revenue stream. That space seems to be less hot in its growth than the mobile management and security, which is why you had companies like AirWatch and Mobile Iron and Good have faster revenue growths than some of the folks in the mobile app development space. I also think it favors a company who has applications or applications roots. I think the only standalone company in that space that seems to be doing reasonably well is Coney. Everybody else is now kind of part of some kind of deeper framework, right? I
was going to ask you about that. You know, why do you think that's the case?
I think because to build applications, you got to know applications, right? So part of what an SAP or an Oracle or a Salesforce have, or potentially even IBM through their global consulting, is they have deep knowledge and domain about a particular area of apps. In the case of SAP, it's a wide variety of horizontal apps, and I ran many of them when I was SAP, or a wide variety of industries, which I also had a lot of experience at SAP. And they bring that expertise to bear. IBM's doing the same thing, but through global business services, GBS with their relationship with Apple, bringing industry knowledge to building custom apps. But Salesforce the same way, right?
Yeah.
The companies who don't have to approach it very quickly to saying they know so much that domain, like a Coney, and they're doing a reasonably good job with that, and then partner with SIs to get some of the places where they need extra bodies to scale.
So you brought up the name SAP. SAP seems to have gone through considerable transition within their mobility strategy this spring and through the summer. Any opinions on what we're seeing there in the marketplace?
Well, VMware and SAP have always had a strong relationship. In the data center space, we have virtualized SAP applications, continue to do more of that. We announced our support for HANA. So we've taken that same data center partnership to the client side. And Quentin Clark, my good friend who's now CTO, right across the street, so to speak, I used to work there, and I got together and figured out a way by which we could actually accelerate AirWatch integration into 2 or 3 of the most popular things that sit on people's mobile devices from the SAP portfolio: Concur, SuccessFactors, and the mobile HANA Cloud platform. the mobile services pieces of it. And we committed to doing the integration on our side and they to us, so that this appropriate industry standard that VMware is working on with Apple and Google and so on, called App Config for the Enterprise, ACE. SAP is going to embrace that and integrate SuccessFactors and Concur and the custom apps built with the HANA Mobile Cloud Platform into AirWatch through ACE. And the good news is, like, that ACE standard is an industry standard. Yeah. Apple's the one who really came up with App Config initially, and then Google embraced that too. And now you're finding the world's largest applications player. So we love working with all the leading application players. We'd announced earlier that Salesforce and Workday and Cisco WebEx and others were in this partnership scheme. We're just really honored. I'm delighted that Quinton has announced that SAP was working with us, and we look forward to making them very successful.
So that's big news. Let me move on to another question as well. Do you need multiple platforms, mobility platforms within a typical company, one for customer facing and one for enterprise, or do you think that can be done with one and the same?
It's a really good question. I spent a fair amount of time during my days at SAP as we were thinking through B2C, B2E versions of mobile app platforms. And I fundamentally believe there's no reason why, if you think back to the app server world, you didn't have a different version of BEA for the internal portal versus the external stuff. Ultimately, an app server, they need more scalability. So I think the mirror to the app development app framework for the mobile world is no different. I think the B2E folks built a little bit more of the types of use cases for things like offline and sync, and the B2C guys built a little bit more on scaling. I think that, quite frankly, the world is looking for one platform. Many of the folks who came at this from an open source perspective, whether it's Cloud Foundry or so on, don't differentiate between B2E, B2B, or B2C. And I think the appropriate way will be that any app development platform with an SDK has a set of back-end services it can connect to, and then you don't differentiate between B2C, B2B, or B2E.
You may have different groups out there building the end app at the back-end system.
Hopefully it should be similar, because you shouldn't have to deploy two servers that are different code bases, different vendors. It just gets very complex for IT over time.
Absolutely. So if I could pick your brain,
okay,
let's look back at the last 24 months.
Yep.
What do you think has happened in the whole mobility industry? If you could walk us through the evolution as you saw it over the last 24 months, and then where do you think it's going in the next 24 months?
Yeah, I mean, sort of as a brief history, like I said, I love learning, and about almost 36 months ago, as John Chen was leaving Sybase, Bill McDermott came to me and said, listen, you seem to have he's my boss at the time, CEO of SAP, and a great person who has been a friend and mentor to me, came and said, hey, listen, you seem to have a reasonably good experience at integrating companies and acquisitions. I'd done that at SAP. At SAP, I really was the analytics and big data guy there. But hey, would you like to learn something about this topic called mobility? So I had the great fortune, and was very blessed to have an opportunity to integrate Sybase in and learn a ton about mobility. Those first 6 months were like baptism through fire. I learned a ton about mobile management and security, mobile app platforms, and I had some incredible people on my team, several of whom you know, some of whom have joined me now. And I learned a ton about what was happening in each of these markets. And since then, you fast forward 3 years, I've seen each of those markets now evolve, but I've started to build some points of view very quickly in the first 6 to 12 months. It was very clear to me that the mobile management and security space, which is the space that AirWatch and others played in, was increasingly going to start becoming part of this digital workplace, where it was going to blend with some of the desktop technologies, blend with some of the security technologies. It was going to blend with some of the networking technologies. And I was starting to feel certainly at SAP that was not where, at the time, SAP had a strength. We were better served partnering and so on and so forth. And when I came here, I kind of really made that my focus, mobile management and security, because it's close to the DNA. We're an infrastructure company, not an apps company.
Right.
But my time at SAP, I really felt that the mobile apps play was a huge opportunity. And if you look at the success that we had while I was there, applications like Cyclo, later on Fiori, many of the industry apps that me and my teams helped drive across the industry, that's really where, SAP's having enormous success. And then they acquired more assets that brought them more mobile footprints, Concur, SuccessFactors, where everyone's been looking at these apps now with a mobile first type of approach. And I think that's where the world will go for apps players. Whether they're built on top of an app platform, like the SAP mobile platform or Coney or IBM's mobile first platform, who knows, or Cloud Foundry, that's going to be the decision of the various different developers or industry groups. I certainly think there seems to be a pivot to a lot more of native building it rather than building it on a write once, run anywhere, and certainly a movement towards open source. Will one company be the one-stop shop for all tooling and infrastructure for mobile? Possibly, but the discipline and design of management and security is so different from mobile apps and platforms. So if I would say there's one thing that I learned initially, and it's very easy at a big company to think we can do it all, right? I think that right now the applications companies are going to really specialize in building apps really well, and the companies that get management and security really well are going to do that, and those two will interface with each other, interact with each other, but don't have to necessarily be owned by one company. And that's the reason we've not got into apps. We've been very deliberate that we're going to partner with the best companies there. I mean, our partnership with SAP is huge. Our partnership with Salesforce, where Adobe will be at Workday. We want to make sure that through app config, we've built the best application automatic integration with the apps.